Nobody in your life is ever going to sit you down and tell you that the thing you carry is holy. So I'm going to do it. You've been calling it depression, a personality flaw, a phase you should have outgrown by 30, something in your wiring that got bent early and never straightened out. And every time you sat in a room full of laughing people and felt the floor quietly drop away underneath you for no reason anybody could name, you added it to the list of things wrong with you. I'm taking that list out of your hands today. Chosen one, and I mean you, the specific person watching this. Not an audience. There are 9 pains that come attached to a called life. 9. I've counted them for years. In my own walk, and in the walks of people who sat across kitchen tables from me at hours when decent people are asleep. Not one of those 9 is a malfunction. All 9 of them are pressure. And pressure has a purpose. My name is George. I've spent a long time now sitting with people in the hardest hours of their faith. Hospital hallways, church parking lots where somebody couldn't make themselves go back inside, front porches at 2 in the morning with the coffee gone cold. And I've watched something happen over and over that I want to name before we go one step further. The people God uses hardest are almost always the people who spend the most years thinking something is broken in them. Every single time. Now let me put a picture in your hands. Hold on to it, because I'm going to come back to it all the way through, and I want you to be holding it at the end. There's a garden on the side of a hill outside Jerusalem. You know the name. Gethsemane. What most people never learn is what that name actually means. It means oil press. That whole hillside was covered in olive trees, and at the base of it sat a stone basin with a heavy wheel, and the fruit came down off those trees and went under that wheel. Because an olive that's left whole is just an olive. Pretty enough. Sits in a bowl. Does nothing. The oil that lit the lamps in the temple, the oil that anointed the heads of kings, the oil that ran down Aaron's beard, none of it existed until something got crushed. And on the worst night of his life, when the Son of God needed a place to sweat blood, he didn't go to the temple. He didn't go to a hilltop. He went to the press. I want you to sit inside that for a second. He chose the crushing floor. The first pain is the one that gets under the ribs and stays there, because it doesn't come from strangers. It comes from your own kitchen. You have tried to explain yourself to your family, maybe more than once. You've tried to describe the thing you feel when a room shifts, the reason you cried at something nobody else even noticed, why you couldn't take the promotion, why you left the job everyone was so proud of you for getting, and you watched their faces while you talked. That look, you know the one. Not cruelty. Something almost worse, the patient, tired look of people who love you and have decided you're a little too much. There's a prophet I want to walk with you through this whole video. His name is Jeremiah, and I picked him because he is the least polished, most human-called man in the entire book. He complained. He argued with God out loud. He had days he wished he'd never been born, and he said so in writing, and God let it stay in the Bible. Here's what almost nobody knows about him. When the plot against his life finally surfaced, the organized, serious, "We are going to end this man" plot, it didn't come out of the palace. It came out of Anathoth, his hometown. The men conspiring to silence him were the men he grew up beside, his own family's people, the ones who watched him learn to walk. They told him plainly, "Stop prophesying in that name, or you'll die by our hands." Think about what that does to a man. Not the danger he could handle, danger. The address. The danger had a familiar address. So when your sister rolls her eyes, when your father says, "You've always been sensitive," in the voice that makes it a diagnosis, When your husband goes quiet in the car after you tried. One more time. To say what you were sensing, understand what you're standing in. You are standing where every called person has stood. The people closest to your calling are almost never the people closest to your blood. That's not bitterness. That's geography. The second pain is a quieter one, and it confuses people for years. Nobody fought. That's what makes it strange. There was no blow-up, no betrayal, nothing you could point at and say that's why. The friendship just thinned. Texts got shorter. The invitations stopped coming and you didn't notice for 2 months. And when you finally saw them again at somebody's cookout, it was perfectly pleasant and completely empty. You've turned that over 1,000 times looking for what you did. Let me tell you what happened instead. You changed frequency. Something in you started tuning to a different station, and the conversations that used to feed you started sitting on top of your spirit like a wet coat. You couldn't fake it anymore, and they felt that before you did. God separates before He assigns. Every single time. He empties the room before He fills it. Because He is not going to hand you an assignment in a room full of voices that will talk you out of it by Thursday. That empty stretch you're in? It isn't punishment. It's clearance. The third pain is the one that made you doubt your own mind. You walk into a house, and you know. Somebody shakes your hand, and something in your gut pulls back before your manners catch up. You sit in a meeting and you can feel that the number on the paper isn't the real number. You look at your friend's new boyfriend, and you know, 3 months before the rest of them, exactly how it ends. And you said something once, maybe twice, and you got called judgmental, dramatic, negative. Somebody told you that you have trust issues. So you learned to swallow it. And that swallowing has a cost, chosen one, and I don't think anybody has ever told you what it is. Discernment that isn't spoken doesn't disappear. It turns inward. It becomes anxiety. It becomes that low hum in your chest that follows you into stores and church services and family dinners. That thing you've been medicating with noise for a decade. You were given eyes for a reason, but you were trained, mostly by embarrassment, to stare at the floor with them. Back to the press for a second. Watch how olives were actually crushed. It happened in stages. The first pressing came from the weight of the stone alone, the gentlest one, and it produced the purest oil. The stuff they burned in the lamps. The clearest light in the house came from the lightest pressure. Then they tightened it, and tightened it again. The oil from the last pressing was darker, thicker, harder to get. But it was also the strongest. That was the oil that went into medicine. Some of you are on your third pressing right now, and you think the increase means God stopped caring. It doesn't. It means He's after the medicine. The fourth pain is the waiting. And I want to be careful here, because I refuse to be another voice telling you cheerfully that your breakthrough is right around the corner. You've heard that. It's been around the corner for 6 years. Here's the harder truth, and I think you can handle it. Jeremiah prophesied for roughly 40 years. 40, and the central promise he carried, the restoration, the return, the rebuilding of everything that was about to be lost, was set at 70 years. Do that arithmetic with me. He was a young man when it started. He preached restoration his entire adult life, and he died in Egypt, dragged there against his will by people who ignored him one final time. He never stood in the restored city. He never saw a single stone of it go back into place. He carried a promise. He was not going to live inside. Now most people hear that and get discouraged. I want you to hear it differently, because what it means is that God's timeline for what He's doing through you is bigger than the timeline of your own comfort. Some of what you're carrying is not for you. It is for the people who come after you and never learn your name. That doesn't make the waiting hurt less. It makes it mean something. I knew a woman named Marge, who cleaned the sanctuary of a small church in eastern Ohio for 31 years. Nobody hired her. She just started doing it after her husband passed, and never stopped. Vacuumed between the pews on Saturday nights with the lights half off. Found the things people left behind: reading glasses, a child's mitten, once a wedding ring on the floor under the third row, and set them on the table by the door. She used to say the same thing whenever anybody thanked her, which wasn't often. She'd say, "Somebody has to get the room ready." Marge died at 78, and never once stood behind that pulpit, or led anything, or had her name printed on a single bulletin. But I sat in that sanctuary the week after her funeral, and I watched a 19-year-old kid give his life to God in the fourth row. And I thought about how many Saturday nights that particular stretch of carpet had been prayed over by a widow with a vacuum cleaner. She didn't live inside her promise either. She built the room it happened in. Some of you are Marge right now. You are getting a room ready that you will not be standing in when the thing you prayed for finally walks through the door. And I'm not going to insult you by pretending that's easy. I'm only going to tell you it isn't wasted. And there's a mercy hidden inside the delay that nobody talks about. If God had given you the platform at 26, when you were still building your identity out of other people's applause, it would have destroyed you. You know it would have. The delay is not God withholding the thing. It's God building the man who can hold the thing without it killing him. The fifth pain is the one you almost never say out loud, because saying it out loud makes you sound unwell. The nights, 3 in the morning, and you're awake, and it isn't the coffee. There's a weight in the room, something heavy sitting in your chest. Sometimes it's a wave of dread with no object attached to it, no bill, no diagnosis, no argument, just dread. Sometimes it's every failure of the last 20 years arriving at once, in order, in high definition. And in the morning you make the coffee and go to work and tell nobody. Chosen one, listen to me. Nobody wastes ammunition on an empty field. There is no strategy in attacking a life that's going nowhere. The resistance sitting on your chest at 3 in the morning is not evidence that God left. It's evidence that something read your file. I've stopped being surprised when the strongest people I know describe the worst nights. It stopped being a coincidence a long time ago. And notice where the enemy chooses to work. Not in public. In the dark, in the quiet, in the hours when you have no witnesses and no defenses, and nobody to say that's not true out loud. He works at 3 in the morning for the same reason a thief does, because the house is asleep. Which is exactly why what happened in that garden matters. On the night of the press, the Son of God asked 3 men to stay awake with him, and they slept anyway. He faced the worst hour of it alone, under the olive trees, on the crushing floor. He knows the 3 a.m. room. He's been in it. The 6th pain is loneliness, and I don't mean the ordinary kind. Plenty of people are lonely. You can be lonely in a marriage, lonely at a full table, lonely in a church of 900 people. I mean something more specific. There is a room in you that has never had another person in it. You've got friends. You might have a good marriage. People love you. And there is still a chamber inside you where the real weight sits, and no one, not your wife, not your best friend of 30 years, not the pastor, has ever been in there. You've walked people up to the door of it. You've never gotten anybody all the way inside. Here's the part of Jeremiah's story that stops people cold when they finally hear it. God told him not to marry. That's in there. Plainly, no wife, no sons, no daughters, because of what was coming to that land. And I've thought about that command for years, and I still find it hard. That man carried the heaviest assignment of his generation, and went home every night to a house with nothing in it. No one to tell. No one to pull the door shut behind him and say, "I know. I was there." Now I am not telling you. God is calling you to be alone. Hear me. That was his assignment, not yours. But I am telling you that there is a chamber God reserves for himself, and he does not lease it out. That aching hollow you keep trying to fill with a person, a marriage, a new church, a move to a new city, some of it was never meant to be filled by any of those. It's not a hole. It's a room with a name on the door. I want to stop right here, at number 6, because if you've made it this far with me, something has already happened. You've been nodding. Some of you have been crying and don't fully know why. And I've learned to pay attention to that. Because there are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrive, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the awakening map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now come back with me, because the last 3 are the heavy ones. The 7th pain is the silence of God, and this one takes more people out than any other. You know how to pray. That's what makes it unbearable. You've prayed the same thing so many times the words have gone flat in your mouth, like a song you've sung until it stopped meaning anything. And nothing comes back. No peace, no direction, no warmth, just ceiling. And the accusation that shows up in that silence is always the same one. He's answering other people. So it must be you. Let me tell you what silence actually is, and I want you to write this down somewhere. Silence is not absence. Silence is the sound of a test you're already inside of. Jeremiah once waited 10 days for an answer. 10 days. With a whole terrified group of people standing there, staring at him, waiting for a word that would tell them what to do, and God said nothing for 10 days. The prophet who had heard God his entire life stood there empty, in front of everyone. Anyone can be faithful in the season of confirmation. Anyone. When the signs are landing and the doors are opening, and everybody's telling you they had a dream about you, of course you believe. The question God is answering in the silence is a different question. It's whether you obey a God you can't currently feel. And here's what I've watched happen 100 times. The people who kept showing up in the quiet, who kept praying into what felt like an empty room, who kept reading a book that felt like paper for 8 months straight. Those are the people carrying weight now. Every one of them will tell you the same thing. The silence was where the roots went down. Anything can grow in good weather. Roots are built in drought. The 8th pain has a bitter edge, and it's the one that makes people leave church buildings and never come back. You told the truth, and it cost you. You said the thing in the meeting nobody wanted said. You refused to sign off on something crooked. You wouldn't repeat the story about the woman at your church because you knew what it would do to her. You stood up for somebody who had no one standing up for them. And instead of being honored, you were isolated. You became the difficult one. you lost the position, or the friend group, or the seat at the table you'd worked 11 years to get. Jeremiah got a cistern. They lowered him into an empty water pit for saying out loud what God had told him to say. There was no water in it, just deep mud at the bottom. And he sank into it and stayed there in the dark. Not for lying, for being right at a moment when right was expensive. And the men who put him there were not pagans. They were the officials, the insiders, the religious establishment of his own people, who had decided this man was bad for morale. If you have been wounded by church people, I want you to hear this from me plainly, because I've been that wounded man myself. God saw it. He never once agreed with them. He never asked you to pretend it didn't happen, or to call it a blessing. And notice who got Jeremiah out of that pit. Not a priest, not a prince, a foreign servant named Ebed-Melech, an outsider, with no standing at all, who went and got old rags so the ropes wouldn't cut the prophet's arms while they pulled him up. Read that detail again. Rags under the ropes. The man God sent to rescue him thought about his comfort on the way up. Your rescue may not come from the people you expect. It rarely does. But it comes. And then there's the ninth, the deepest one, the one that separates the merely wounded from the genuinely called. You have tried to walk away. Be honest with me. You have. You've had the conversation with yourself in the truck in the driveway with the engine off. You've said, out loud or in your chest, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to live a normal life like normal people. I'm going to stop caring so much. I'm going to stop carrying things that aren't mine. You've quit in your heart more than once. And then 3 days go by. Sometimes 3 hours. And it comes back. That heat. That pull. That thing that will not release you no matter how sincerely you resign. Jeremiah, of all people, is the one who put words to this. He said he decided he would not speak in that name again. He'd had enough. He was mocked all day long, every day, and he made up his mind to shut his mouth for good. And then he said this, and I want you to hear it as a man describing a physical experience, not a poet reaching for a phrase. He said it became like a fire shut up in his bones, and he grew weary holding it in, and he could not. He could not. That's your ninth pain. You are not free to quit. And I know that sounds like a curse when you're tired. But look at what it actually is. Anybody can leave a job. Anybody can walk out of a church, put down a burden, change cities and start over. You have tried all of it. And the fire followed you into the new city, into the new job, into the new season, and lit up again on an ordinary Tuesday for no reason at all. You're not stubborn, chosen one. You're carrying fire. And fire doesn't ask permission to burn. So let me bring you back to that hillside outside Jerusalem, because you've been holding it this whole time. 9 pains, 9 forms of pressure, and there is not a single one of them that is evidence God made a mistake with you. The family that doesn't understand you, the friendships that quietly ended, the eyes that see too much, the promise that hasn't landed, the nights, the room nobody has ever entered, the silence, the cost of telling the truth, the fire you can't put out. That's the press. And here is what I need you to carry out of this video, above everything else I've said. The oil never had to be forced out of the olive from the outside. It was already in there. Every drop of it was inside the fruit before the wheel ever came down. The stone didn't add anything. All the crushing did was open the way for what was already inside to come out, where it could finally be used. You have been treating your pain as proof that you're empty. It was never that. It was the only thing that ever got you open. And the same man who chose the oil press for his worst night walked out of that garden, and finished what he came to do. The crushing was not the end of his story. It was the last thing that happened before everything changed. You are not being destroyed, chosen one. You are being poured out. There's a difference. And I think tonight might be the night you finally learn it. Before you go, I want something specific from you, and I want you to actually do it. Go down to the comments and tell me the number of the pain that hit you the hardest 1 through 9. Just the number. And then tell me one thing: how old you were when it started. Not the details, unless you want to share them. Just the age. Because I've done this long enough to know what I'm going to see down there. I'm going to see hundreds of you writing the same number and the same age. People who have never met, scattered across different states, who all thought they were the only one. I want you to scroll through those and count how many of you there are. And to every one of you who has been sitting in the dark thinking you were the only one who felt this way, read the comments tonight. You're going to find out that hillside has a lot more trees on it than you thought. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the QR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us.